director helping to organize the event tonight. The band is
Hey,
able to get all
nice
the
job back there. Thanks,
Now
but I don't quite think it's over yet. Yeah, I don't know. Something ain't right out here tonight. You think it has something to do with Halloween? It's hard to say. You never know with this city. Oh no. Oh no. Hey, what's going on back there? I'm not sure. I'm gonna run diagnostics now. Come on, you gotta give me something. It's still scanning.
Warning. System critical.
We have a problem. We have a big problem. Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how you can take something like this, or pretty much any object for that matter, and very easily apply a few basic effects to end up with something like this. Now, I find this 3D digital scan look very useful when I want to have custom assets to place within a HUD screen or some other kind of technical graphic. So this is nothing new. I'm sure you guys have seen a version of this before, but that's kind of the thing with tutorials, right? Everything has already been done a million times. But for me personally, the value in a tutorial isn't necessarily the technique. More often than not, it's the point of time, creatively speaking, that I'm being exposed to it, which for me will often generate tons of other ideas that can be built off of whatever idea I was just shown. So in the last video, I knew I wanted this kind of digitalized look on the monitor while Hydrostatic here was constructing his anti-influencer bombs. Now, these bombs were actually magnetic flashlights I picked up at Napa Auto Parts here in town for like $12 a piece. They were absolutely perfect. Anyways, I also wanted to add movement into the mix, so to make it seem like it was a 3D scan or something. And that's pretty much how everything got rolling. Now, the only gear this really requires, besides a camera, of course, is a green screen and some kind of device to spin the object. For the green screen, I'm just using this small portable one I got on Amazon for like $45. Now, you certainly don't have to have something this big or necessarily even a legit green screen. I've seen people use pieces of fabric, seamless paper, as well as a ton of other materials. If you don't have access to one, just Google DIY green screen and you'll have all kinds of options to keep yourself busy for the afternoon. Now for the turntable, I've still been using the Comixum 360, you know, the one I talked about in the Christmas gear video from last December. It's been pretty awesome so far. I will link all of the stuff down below, but once again, you definitely don't need this exact turntable. There are plenty of low-cost options on Amazon for as cheap as $13. It really doesn't even need to be motorized. Honestly, you just have to be able to spin it 1 or 2 revolutions with a somewhat consistent speed. I mean, damn, go visit your grandma and ask her if you can borrow her record player. I mean, it's a little precarious, but trust me, it works. So the setup is easy. I just threw everything up on the driveway. It doesn't really matter where you do it as long as you make sure the background is lit evenly. Now I set the turntable on a stool a couple of feet away and then made sure it was level. Now I didn't do this with the bombs in the previous video, and once I sped up the rotation in post, you could clearly see them swaying all over the place, which isn't a huge deal. It can be corrected by position keyframing, but why bother when you can just do it right the first time? So the next thing I did was make a sort of riser to elevate the objects off the surface of the table. I just used a container of wood putty and some green frog tape. This just makes it easier to deal with the bottom edge when it comes time to key out the background. Now, after some trial and error, I ended up adding a daylight balanced fill light to help get rid of some of the shadows that the car was casting on the pedestal. Now, you definitely don't need to do it, but it seemed to make it a lot easier to obtain a cleaner key. And as far as the camera setup goes, I shot on a 50mm Sigma using manual focus at f10 to ensure most of the objects stayed in focus as it spun around. Now, motion blur isn't a big factor at the slow speeds this turntable is at, so I just kept my shutter speed at twice the frame rate. So after that was all ready to go, I let the thing spin for a bit and the hard part was pretty much over with. So let's move on to the next step, open up Premiere and drag our clip into the timeline. All right, So I kind of like to scrub through the clip to see how much of the image I'm going to be able to mask out before I actually apply the Ultra Key effect. So after we have our mask in place, we'll go over to the effects area and type in Ultra Key. You'll drag that onto your clip and do your best to key out as much of the background as you can. Now I usually render the clip out at this point in case I have to do any additional masking to remove areas that the Ultra Keyer could not. So then we'll go ahead and mark our in and out points, and then export it into a format that will preserve the alpha channel or the transparency data. Now I've typically used the preset ProRes 4444 with alpha for this sort of thing and have always ended up getting great results. You can find that by selecting QuickTime in the Format dropdown and then search for ProRes 4444 inside the preset menu. After we got that, we'll render it out and then drag our new clip back into the timeline, and you should be able to see the object's background is now gone. If for some reason you're seeing a black background, don't worry. You can view transparency by clicking on this little wrench and selecting the transparency grid from the dropdown. Alright, so next let's go over to the effects search area and type in Find Edges. You'll drag that effect onto your clip and right away you'll see that you get this cool kind of schematic look. For the look I want, I'm going to check the invert box and then blend with the original about 50% or so. Now the final step is to go back to the effects area, search for the tint effect, and then throw that onto your clip as well. Now I'm going to leave the shadows mapped to black and then go ahead and change the highlights to this teal color. Now you can definitely experiment with different colors in the highlights to obtain all sorts of different looks, like this 80s computer green. So retro. Zork, anyone? Anyway, that's pretty much it. Now these settings will be slightly different depending on the objects you're using and or the specific look you're trying to create. It also works great on photos or 2D objects as well. As long as you can isolate your subject from its background in something like Photoshop, you can then save it in a format that preserves the alpha channel data like a PNG or a TIFF. The exact same process can then be applied and you can easily match the color and or luminance values of multiple objects by simply moving a few sliders in the Lumetri color panel within Premiere. So, using that process, along with the help of a few background assets I found on Storyblocks, which, might I add, is an amazing service that I pay for, and it's been worth every single penny so far. But I was able to then use my own custom objects to help create the BOM diagrams from the last video, as well as the Ecto-1 diagnostic scan for this one. Should we watch it?
Warning. System critical.
Silly. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I know this video has probably been a bit excessive in order to show a process that takes literally seconds to complete, but to be honest, it's getting to do all those ridiculous other things that makes it so enjoyable and fun to me. I really just can't help myself. Hopefully, at the very least, you can take something from all of this and maybe apply it or adapt it to some ideas you've been bouncing around in your own head. Either way, thank you for sticking around. Until next time, I'm Kris. See ya.